Quit the 9 to 5 with Ben Handler, getting you out of the rat race and into a career buying property.
Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm the co-host of Quit the 9 to 5. My name's Alex Whitlock. Ben, great to see you. How's things today?
Very, very good. I'm looking forward to sharing this episode with Rachel Cruze.
Rachel is a buyer's agent who's been in the marketplace for quite some time, and I thought it was a great opportunity to give listeners an insight into somebody who's an experienced buyer's agent. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Rachel, before we kind of sort of get into the sort of the nuts and bolts of being a buyer's agent, you're not your pathway into this particular career was quite an interesting one.
Yeah, that's right. It was quite a random one, and I did fall into it, but when I look back in hindsight, it's been a beautiful path. Yeah. The
career that I'm in now, media, I fell into that. I won't bore you with the details, but I think often, sometimes opportunities crop up, and taking things that aren't maybe the most obvious thing in life can sometimes be the most rewarding. Now, you were an academic.
Well, I'd like to think so that I was, but I did graduate from a scientific field, from animal and veterinary bioscience.
And from memory, you had a job sort of after you graduated.
Yeah, I was working at the Faculty of Vet Science for a couple of years. In that role, I was seeing the pace of science and how reliant on government funding you'd have to be to get ahead and progress in your career. And I found that quite a bit of a block for me. My link towards getting into property was actually just working in a retail job as I was studying. At Rebel Sports, actually.
Yeah, and so that was a retail job, but with a sales focus, as you know, many retail jobs are nowadays.
Yeah, I was a shoe specialist, so I was the person who.
See, I'm a runner, so when you said that you sold running shoes, that was a particular interest to me.
So you would walk into the store, and I'd say, Alex, how can I? Oh, I wouldn't know your name, but I'd say, how can I help you there? What are you looking for? And consult you in terms of what you're after.
Okay, so you forged your early skill set around sales, basically working with customers, and I figured that you obviously had a focus on sort of a customer service, which then led to the sort of the sales side of things.
Yeah, I didn't even look at it as a skill set. I just quite enjoyed that customer service aspect.
So from salesperson at Rebel Sports to real estate, what was the jump there?
I was stumped with my degree, how to use my degree in my career, and I just felt internally that it was going to be difficult to get ahead, financially also. And I got too emotionally attached to that work. So there was a lot of reasons why I was doubting my career path. And a friend who had gone from school straight into real estate and was working in real estate at the time while I was at Rebel, I met him there. He had been the one to suggest I get into real estate. And I just had this sort of gut, to follow the intuition. And it took me about a few months just to really talk to people, do a bit of research around whether I put aside my scientific career, my first class honours, and give real estate a go for 6 months. And I did.
There you are. Ben, I'd just like to bring you in at this stage. So you've worked in the industry for a long, long time. I just want to just talk to you about this gut feel and making a career move and going into something exciting, whether it's real estate sales or particularly in this instance becoming a buyer's agent. How important is that gut feel?
It's really important. I mean, from my experience, I studied Bachelor Building Construction and Management at university, so I was supposed to be heading into the construction world, and intuitively I was like, no, I don't want to do this after a 4-year or 5-year degree. So I moved straight into development because intuitively I was like, I don't want to be hamstrung in construction because you had to climb a very long ladder in construction to get up there. So I moved straight into development. And so not only with myself, but it's so important. I've seen a lot of people like Rachel who come with different backgrounds, and then they think because of that background, they need to stick in that sector or that industry. And so I think you've really got to feel into if it's passion for property or something else, you've got to potentially make that pivot.
I'm a salesman, and I'm a reluctant salesman. I fell into media, and I discovered that, and I moved into sales at 28 years old, and it was the best thing in the world for me. But again, going back to this gut feeling, there was something I didn't really quite know what it was that I wanted to do. But I thought that I worked in retail as well. Funnily enough, I was a retail manager, but I trusted my gut feel that there was a different career path for me. And look, I now own my own business. Here at Momentum Media, I've got 120 staff. So it's been something which I believe very strongly in is having that intuition, feeling that there is something better out there and having the courage to capitalize on that.
Yeah. And, especially to all the listeners now who are potentially sitting in careers that it's maybe not so well suited to them, or they're not connected so much to the work. The good news is there are other opportunities, and it's never too late to pursue them. And sometimes it can feel like it comes at a cost, even potentially a financial cost to begin with, and an emotional cost to make a change. But you've always got to think long-term and play that long-term game. And so if it's a short-term or medium-term cost, but the long-term upside is there, you've got to weigh that up.
So Rachel, just going back to you, so you moved into real estate, you weighed it up, but you felt that, intuitively that there was an opportunity there for you. So you moved into real estate in 2011?
2011.
Yes. Yep. With an agency based in the eastern suburbs, is it?
It was the Inner West in
Inner West.
Balmain.
Okay, yeah. So what was the pathway for you by moving into sales? How did you sort of grow your sales experience there?
So I just called the agency, and I happened to know someone who was assisting this agent who was very good. And I looked at that agency, and they had market share in this small area. I really loved the area. It was like a village setting, and I could see myself working there. In terms of going into the sales side of things, it was pretty exciting. Like the first 6 months, you're so busy. You're actually super busy, and it's always never a similar day. And you understand the processes and the ins and outs of what happens behind, within a real estate agency. And you see it's not rocket science, but it is a very important process to really...
It's a people-based business.
That's right.
It's about outcomes for people. And I haven't worked in real estate, but I've been an investor for 2 decades, and there's just something about property for me personally, which is really, really unique. You know what? I dabble in stocks and shares, and I always lose money, but I don't have a relationship with stocks and shares. There's something about property that is very, very different. And yes, it is an investment for me, but it's not quite as detached as taking shares in, say, a major bank or whatever. So I do understand, that feeling from a customer's perspective. So what was it? Just tell us a little bit about the transition from going from a sales side to moving on to the buying side, moving into the buyer's agency environment.
So I was working initially as a sales assistant, and then I progressed into a junior agent, or a co-agent, so to say. I was working in that period of the market where, from 2011 to 2014, where the market just started really shifting and increasing rapidly. And my role was working with a lot of the buyers, and they were, I saw them struggling. They were in the market for longer, things were going quicker, and they actually ended up really getting drawn to me because I think I just maybe gave them a bit more advice than I needed to. And in terms of the transition, I think there were a number of reasons. I saw that as a sales agent or a junior sales agent, I would have to really progress and do a lot of long yards. And I'm not afraid of hard work, but I saw an obstacle very early on because it was very saturated in terms of the marketplace for sales agents. And say hypothetically, I would leave my boss's team, I would be essentially competing against him and also all the other agents who had been set up, their track records for 20 years. And I saw a bit of a block again.
Sales is so competitive. And if you travel around any suburb in Australia, you will see, sales office after sales office after sales office. One of the great things about being a buyer's agent is it is really a very embryonic industry. It's very early in its development. And what that means is for people who've got a talent for real estate, who have real care factor around their client outcomes, it's a wonderful opportunity to be in a really sort of, a new industry. Ben, you can give some more visibility on this.
Yeah, I mean, to put into context, there's approximately around 75,000 real estate agents across the country.
Yeah.
There's around approximately 378 buyers agents right now in Australia.
Yeah.
So you put that into context, there's over 20 million in the country, 75,000 real estate agents, less than 400 buyers agents. Yeah, there's a lot of room for growth. And further to what Rachel was saying, real estate agents, it's saturated.
Yeah.
And you're working against so many agents within your office, especially, and then all the competition.
That's right. And you've got to, and the thing is as well in terms of being a real estate agent, you have your territory.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. You're up against people within your own office. There are franchises or offices under the same brand.
Correct.
In suburbs very close by, and then there's everybody else. So it's a really, really, really tough. It's a very confrontational, very, very tough market. I don't need to tell you this. You've obviously worked in the marketplace. Being a buyer's agent is it's very nimble, and I think you operate on behalf. And I've used buyer's agents, and I've bought probably over the years 30 properties with the buyer's agents. I'm very, very familiar with the services that buyer's agents deliver. And the buyer's agent basically goes out for me as a customer and goes out, and I will give them my remit, and they will go out and find the properties. So you had a very strong affinity with your customers, and then you saw an opportunity to move from a very structured, very cutthroat real estate sales role into being a buyer's agent. Tell me a little bit about the first property that you secured for your first client and sort of the process that involved.
The first property.
Or one of the early ones.
Yep, it was in Birch Grove,
Okay.
An off-market terrace. And the client had engaged me because she was an expat, and she was in Australia for a time being, and then she had known me through being active in the area previously. And I knew exactly what she was after. She'd missed out on a property that I was very familiar with, and then I knew who to reach out to, and obviously the market in terms of the price and the value of things. And we were able to secure something off market within, I think it was about 6 weeks.
Wow.
However, that was, I don't know if it was beginner's luck, but I remember there were other transactions and other clients in that first year, which were also, difficult because there's still a lot of learning. Yeah.
Look, let's talk. Let's have a look. So, as a new buyer's agent, you're now experienced, but what are some of the challenges that you faced, and some of the tips you could give to to buyer's agents coming in the marketplace now or looking to move into this?
Yep.
What are some of the things that you would do differently now with experience?
So the biggest lesson that I learned very early on was in terms of understanding what the right client looked like as a buyer's agent.
Yes.
So for you to have 100% confidence to be able to say, you know what, you don't really need our help. I don't feel this is the right fit for you, and to be able to really move forward on that. Because I think early on you sort of go with the view that everyone needs my help because I know so much, I can help you. But in reality, there's not everyone needs a buyer's agent, and understanding that distinction is very important.
Very valuable comments, Ben. I'd just like to sort of tap into you at this stage. So how do you will obviously be approached over the years by a great many people. How do you work out when you can deliver the best outcomes to a prospective client, and when you as Rachel said, you say, look, I might not be the right person for you?
Yeah, that first initial consultation, that meeting that you have with the potential client, you're fleshing out to understand, can we meet your objectives? What's your end goal? What are you looking for? Are your requirements and expectations actually even realistic? And then if they're not, realigning them in that meeting. And then if everyone's in alignment, okay, we can work together. But it's always about, as Rachel said, walking away. If we cannot deliver value, we cannot deliver the outcome, you've got to put your hand up and say, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I'm not right for you. Or maybe I think you can do it on your own. Or maybe go to the competition, go to someone else who can maybe provide a solution for you. So I think it's that first meeting where you're really fleshing out requirements, objectives, and then learning from yourself whether you think that you can actually deliver that yourself.
Yeah. Rachel, I'd like to look at sort of the here and now and then towards the future. Mm-hmm. You've and from chatting to you, you're a very measured person. You're not somebody who's in a hurry to do anything. You're very focused on delivering good outcomes, and you've built clearly a very good reputation for yourself. So tell me a little bit about sort of right now as an agent, sort of how, because it's a tough market right now, how active are you and how are you finding the marketplace?
When the market started shifting, I did actually grow concerned from a business sense, because I was like, this is going to create, the sentiment's going to change. It's not going to be as high volume. But interestingly, in the last, say 8 weeks, has been really busy for me.
Okay.
I actually am quite surprised because, but then I look at my clientele and they're all perfect clients. They all need my help for whatever reason, and they've all been very warm referrals. And I've just closed my 7th deal in the last few days. Yeah.
Wow, that's very, very good. And I think one of the interesting things, if you don't understand the way that the market works, you can look at a tougher market and think that that's a bad time to go into this particular profession. The reality is, it is the right time to move into this because it's, this is where buyers need help and guidance.
Yeah, correct. And interesting enough, 2 years ago when the market was, let's call it flying hot, especially in, Sydney, Melbourne, everyone the perception was, as a buyer's agent, you must be killing it. And I'm like, not necessarily. It's a seller's market right now.
Yeah.
Real estate agents, if they've got a good listing, they are selling it no matter what.
That's right.
Buyer's agents, it's sometimes very hard to compete and buy a property for a client when it's so overpriced. So we've got to say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is way over. Like, let's pull away. So we actually weren't transacting a lot. A lot of frustration from the clients. But what I tell people is that irrespective of a buyer's or seller's market, people are still time poor. They still are moving geography, so they need help with logistics. People are concerned about overpaying. They don't like real estate agents. All those problems still exist. irrespective of a buyer's or seller's market. So I think the buyer's agent service is always in demand.
And let's look at this. Let's look at this in a bit more detail. So this off-market purchases. This is critical for buyers agents. And the bottom line is that when it's a seller's market, there's very little off-market stuff because things are flying out the door so quickly that it goes on the market, or the agent can sell it off-market themselves because they've got more buyers than they've got properties to sell. And when the market turns, and when you get a conflicted market, there's no such thing as a bad market. When it switches to being a buyer's market, then that's the opportunity for buyers agents to get these properties before the agents had an opportunity to market them. And the agents are struggling because they've got properties they can't get the right price for. So for buyers agents, this is really, really a market that they can get the best results for their clients.
Yeah, and probably, I'm assuming, Rachel, that's maybe why you've bought 8 deals, I think you said, in the last 7-8 weeks.
There's been a lot of stock available, but I think in terms of understanding, to be able to pluck out the quality stock, that's been difficult because people with very good properties, they've been really wanting to hold on to it and not selling unless they need to, sorry.
So looking to the future, Rachel, you've chosen to go into, real estate is clearly now a part of you. So you've moved into it by accident, but it's clearly a part of you. What are your aspirations for your agency? And then just in terms of your lifestyle as well, what are your sort of hopes in terms of how this can enhance your life moving forwards?
Well, I think I've realized the power of efficiency and actually really gaining the rewards from a performance-based industry. In terms of aspirations, I think I've come across some amazing clients, and at the moment I'm looking at diversifying a little bit into, I don't know if this is a bit of a digressing, but like one of my past clients was a psychologist, and she was heavily involved in conflict resolution. Anyway, We've worked together, I purchased for her, and we've been looking at the real estate industry and how much, I think you could say, conflict there is between agent and vendor and, vendor and vendor, between decision making. And I'm looking at it really fascinated how people come to decisions, and maybe it's just a bit of a side study for now, but I'm looking at, bringing those tools in.
So being a buyer's agent has given you a lot of flexibility in your life. It's given you the opportunity to do the things that you're interested in. And I mean, look, and as the topic of this, as the name of this show is, quit the 9 to 5, gives you flexibility in terms of how you structure.
Lots of flexibility. Yeah.
So how do you, in terms of lifestyle, are you a workaholic? Do you like to spend all your time working? Do you like to have a good work-life balance?
I like to be as balanced as possible. I've been able to really work on my morning routine, which has been really patchy in the last number of years. Very patchy. Truth be told. And work on health and fitness. Try to anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Ben, you've been in this industry for a long, long time. What are some of the things that you've found over the years that attract good buyers agents like Rachel to go into this, not just the opportunity to get great outcomes for the clients, but really in terms of that opportunity to enhance their own lives?
It's an interesting question because just focusing on Rachel for a minute or so, Rachel didn't come from a sales background like you.
Yeah.
Either did I. I mean, I was working in a property funds management company. So both Rachel and I didn't come from sales backgrounds. We hadn't worked in a real estate transactional style of role. I mean, Rachel was an assistant, but she wasn't transacting one-on-one with the vendor. So that doesn't necessarily constitute the right boxes to tick. I think people who are just obsessed with professionalism and integrity and meeting clients' objectives and are very focused on upskilling and continuously learning, obviously with discipline, because discipline comes into everything. But I think those skill sets work really well as buyer's agents. Like Rachel's obviously a top performing buyer's agent and doesn't come across as a salesperson. And if you meet her, you wouldn't think she's a cheesy, salesperson.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things with a buyer's agent. You've got to look at the actual sort of metrics. Is that you're a negotiator essentially. You're not really selling.
Correct.
Yes, you need to find clients, but if you're a good buyer's agent, you build a network. Correct. And you get referred. You've got, and this comes back to something we talked about a little bit earlier in the show about understanding which clients to work with. Because if you get good client outcomes, you'll get referrals. So the actual negotiation part is not a sales. You're not selling anything.
That's right.
You're buying, and I think with your academic background, not that that's essential, but I think having having diligence in what you do and being, looking at analyzing and then building, because you build relationships with agents to make sure you get the off-market houses before anyone else. And then you build relationships with your clients too. So it's really not I think, Ben, Rachel, the sales, you need to be a salesman really in everything that you do to get ahead. I personally
Correct.
believe, but this is not a sales business like being a real estate agent.
It's correct. Just quickly, there's a psychology, like when you engage a real estate agent to sell a property, you're paying the real estate agent out of your proceeds of the sale. So it's effectively not coming out of your back pocket. But if you engage a buyer's agent like you have, Alex, you're buying the property, but then you're actually physically taking cash out of somewhere to pay the fee. And so I feel like they don't want to be sitting in front of a client, in front of someone who's a cheesy salesperson.
No.
Someone who's good at communication, good negotiator, knows what to do.
So let's talk about the fee for a second. So I'm a fee-paying client, and I'm very happy to part with the fee that I pay to my agent. Fees vary from buyer's agent to buyer's agent, so it's not like there is one set fee. Unlike real estate, where it's a percentage of the sale price. So again, from my perspective, before I talk to you guys as professionals, I'll be told what the fee is. I will say what properties I want to buy, and I will put out a flat fee. So the agent is not incentivized. The buyer's agent is hired by me to negotiate a property. So it's in their best interest to get the price down as low as they can. Whereas an agent who is selling, that it's in their best interest for the price to be the highest. What are some of how do you find sort of dealing with the fee side of things with clients? Do you find any resistance when maybe you talk to a new client? How do you find that sort of negotiation?
I think fees, they come up first and foremost with those who don't. If they're picking about your fees and that's what they're really focusing on, then they may not be right for the service. But in terms of talking through the fee, it's really understanding, do they need my help? Can I help them? What do they need help with? And then what's the most appropriate fee for that help? And then when you talk it through with them and break it down like that, in terms of what you're saving for them from a net perspective, the net outcome, they see, they miss out on properties, or they could have bought a property for X amount less because they don't know the market, like the value of that, and just being able to buy with confidence. A lot of clients are very willing to pay.
I think also as well, the fee that you pay speaking personally, the fee you pay to a buyer's agent, it's not necessarily just getting a property that's at the biggest discount, because you get a discounted property that's not in a good location where you don't know the demographic. It may look on paper like you're getting a bargain, and then you find out that there is a suburb that's not desirable to live in. It's a suburb that doesn't rent very well. It's a suburb that's not in an appreciating sort of
the cost of a mistake, essentially.
So the fee for the agent, it means that you have the confidence that you're buying, yes, a property ideally at below market rate, or otherwise a property that's at market rate that's about, because of information that the agent has, that property is basically geared to grow. So yeah, the fees I think the fees are, as a customer, very justified. So just look, we're going to wrap up shortly, but Rachel, in terms of moving into this marketplace, moving into this particular area of real estate, do you think that anybody can move into this particular area? What would be the traits that you would say that you'd need to have if you're thinking about becoming a buyer's agent? What are some of the things that you would need to think about, and what are some of the opportunities that you feel it would give to move into this area?
Okay, good question. I think definitely an interest in property and having understanding of that to be able to advise your clients accordingly. Assuming you have that, it would definitely be the care factor and being able to connect with clients and to be able to deliver. I think that care factor is critical, because when you meet with a client, you're not there thinking about the dollars that you're going to gain from this person. You're there understanding what they need help with and how you can be in service.
Fantastic. And Ben, just to sort of round off, what are some of the observations you have for some of the most successful buyer's agents that you've worked with over the years?
I think Rachel really nailed it. Care. It's really having a lot of care and diligence for what you're doing for the client. You're dealing with large sums of money, and they're huge investments for people. And there needs to be that level of trust where you advise and say, maybe it's time to walk away. And so I think where you're not focused, as Rachel said, on the dollars, you're just focused on the outcome.
Ben, I think very wise words. Look, for those of you that are tuning in, if you're interested, please get in contact with Ben. He has a wealth of experience. He's in a perfect position to help guide you in terms of what a career would look like. And he offers a fantastic training course to help you get you on your path. Now it's always a good time to move in this marketplace, but you know what? With things being a little bit tighter, options are increasing, and with only 350 odd buyers agents out there and 75,000 real estate agents, never been a better time to move in. Thanks very much for joining us, Ben. Been a pleasure.
Thank you,
Rachel. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Quit the 9 to 5 with Ben Handler. For more advice on turning property buying into your career, head to www.buyersagentinstitute.com.au now.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature, does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.